Hey everyone, this is Dr. Matt from the Ethos Athletes Podcast, and today we're going to be talking we're on episode 4 of our nutrition series, and we're going to be talking about using macro tracking for the general population wanting to lose weight. And for this particular episode, just like our nutrition series, I have Kelli Michelle with Keep Moving Forward, who's our guest speaker today. And Kelli holds a master's in nutrition science from ASU. She's also a NASM certification, and she's a sports nutrition specialist. So Kelli, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Matt.
So today we're going to be talking about macro tracking for the Gen Pop. And so one of the first questions I want to start out with is what these individuals who are wanting to lose weight, is there a difference in someone who is wanting to lose 10 to 15 pounds compared to, say, 50 to 100 pounds? And can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the macro journey is the difference. Everybody's journey is a little bit different anyhow. But obviously a person who has 50 to 100 pounds is typically and traditionally going to take a little bit longer than somebody who has 10 to 15 pounds to lose, right? And again, it's all dependent on where the person actually starts. So, in the United States, we have a really bad problem with yo-yo dieting. People will diet for 6 months. They'll take off a majority of the weight that they wanted to get off, and they say, oh, I'm going to relax a little bit and I'll lose the last 10 or 15. But what ends up happening is they actually gain back all of the weight and then some. And they're back in that vicious cycle of yo-yo dieting again. So there's that half of the population. And then I get in my general population, 50% of people that come to me who just have 10 or 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds to lose after a baby. Or they just, life happened. Some of them have gone through stress or trauma. That will change the journey a little bit. So for people who have more than 50 pounds to lose, the process is the same as, we talked about with the athletes. I'll document a full week and what their eating patterns look like. I can establish a lot of patternistic behavior based off of what they do for 7 days, because typically what you'll see is 2 days of under eating, 1 day of binge eating, 1 day of under eating, 1 day of binge eating, 2 days of under eating or 3 days of beating themselves up and feeling guilty, and another binge day. And I'm going to be honest, I pretty much see that in almost everybody's data. Okay. Including when I started. I didn't know that my coach was looking for that because, there is a psychological component that comes along with dieting someone for as long as you might need to diet someone who has 50 to 100 pounds to lose. We talked a little bit in our podcast number 2 about scale weight and fat loss.
Right.
So I want to make it very clear that losing scale weight is not always losing fat loss.
Yeah, that's a great distinction.
Primarily fat. My goal as a coach is for my clients to lose only body fat. And again, that first week is what I would call the tipping point week. So people get very excited when they've got 50 to 100 pounds to lose. They come to me, I start adding food and they start dropping weight. So the process for somebody who comes in and has 50 to 100 pounds might be a little bit different if they're actually eating at maintenance level calories versus they're not eating enough food at all. About 80% of people who come to me are 500 to 800 calories deficit already, and that would not include any of the exercise that they're doing. So that being said, we are eating the least amount of food. There's a lot of binge eating that goes on at nighttime, and I have to work on behaviors the first couple weeks along with people adhering to the macros that I set them at. So typically what I'll do, Matt, is I will take somebody and I will set them as close to their averages as I possibly can. However, most people in Gen Pop come in eating way too little protein, far under even 0.5 grams per pound of body weight, so half a gram per pound of body weight. I try to work them up to 0.7 if it's feasible, and I know that it's not going to cause GI discomfort in the first couple weeks because protein is very thermic. It takes a lot of calories to break down. So if you give somebody too much protein that first week, it can cause some GI distress. It can cause them not to, to feel a little bloated. So I'm very careful about over consumption of protein that first few weeks. I like to gradually increase that up if I can. However, if they're really under eating on protein, say they're, 150 pounds, they have 15 to 20 pounds to lose, but they're only eating 60 or 70 grams of protein, I will usually take them up to about 90 to 100, split those into 18 to 25 grams per meal, 5 or so hours, 4 to 5 hours apart, depending on their eating window. Maybe even 3 meals at 25 to 30 grams if people are worried more about being satiated. And we can kind of skin a cat several different ways. Okay. So there's no right way or wrong way. There's just a better way for each person. When you're looking at the population that is, gonna need to lose 50 to 100 pounds, we know that not all of that is probably going to be body fat, because right at the very end of the dieting period, usually when they're in a calorie deficit, that's typically when you're going to start seeing people lose a little bit of muscle mass. And unfortunately, that just happens when you're in a deficit and you've been eating in a deficit for a long period of time. We try as hard as we can not to lose any lean mass. And I don't know that I've gotten a body DEXA scan where people have actually lost lean mass. Okay. Typically, the body mass, the DEXA scans that I see are, the person conducting goes, "Oh my gosh, you're like a machine." And I'm like, well, no, we just hit it nail on with your macros. We've got you in a place where you're actually gaining lean mass and you're losing body fat, which is awesome. The problem with that is when people don't see the scale moving the right direction, right. They start to get discouraged. And that's why for people who have 50 to 100 pounds to lose, I would highly recommend they do a DEXA scan. I would highly recommend they have that redone every 3 to 6 months. And I would highly recommend that they take progress pictures every 30 days. Because it can be discouraging when you don't see a lot of progress in the mirror, right. But you're seeing it on the scale, but you want to see it on both, right. The scale and the mirror. If we go to the population that has only 15 to 20 pounds or less to lose, they can be a little neurotic because typically they come in under eating as well. And what's worked for them in their 20s, they're still programmed to think that eating less and doing more is going to work for them, when clearly we've got some adaptation issues with calorie balance. They've been eating in a deficit for years. Their body has adapted years ago, and now we have to make it responsive again, right? So the best way to do that as well is to do a reverse diet, adding a little bit more food each week, hoping that they will drop weight. A lot of times they do drop the first 6, 7, 8 pounds, and then we have to work really hard in a deficit again once we've gotten their calories up to maintenance level, which for most people, again, takes, it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 months to get them to a place where they can actually diet without being miserable. If you're dieting off of 1,200 calories, you have nothing to diet from. If you're dieting off 1,500 calories, you have nothing to diet from. If you're dieting off of 2,000 calories as a female, you got a little bit to diet from before you're going to be uncomfortable. And what I love about the method that we use, flexible dieting, is that, I teach these people how to be balanced with their nutrition in the reverse diet so that they are very good in the cut. Okay. Because cutting is extremely taxing. It's difficult. It can cause people to be an emotional wreck because, again, if we're pulling food and they're losing body fat, typically the first thing to go is going to be hormone balance. Right. And that's rough. But for some of these women who do have goals, or men even, to get, sub 10% body fat or sub 15% body fat for women, the female body does not like to get sub 15. It doesn't like to be sub 10. It doesn't like to be lean. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So it is a difficult task for people to look a certain way if they're trying to lose body fat percentage only. It can be daunting, right? So I find that the sustainability is about the same. We have to look at, are they having a diet break every 3 or 4 months where they would maybe take a week and they would eat a little bit more calories in a deficit just for a week. And then they come back and they go back into the deficit and they can do another 3 or 4 months like that, right? So I think diet breaks are pivotal for Gen Pop. Okay. Just like they are for athletes, I think diet breaks are even more important for somebody who's in a deficit, a calorie deficit, and has been, and their body remembers what it is like, and it thinks it's going back that direction. So again, the metabolism slows, Walking now requires less calories. They're walking more, and I'm like, why are you walking more? Now all you're doing is lowering your metabolism again. I have to really coach the people that are losing 15 to 20 pounds to scale back their training. Okay. Because most of them love it, and they've done it so many years because they think it's what works to keep them small and to keep them fit. I have to get them to scale back because, again, the body is so smart. It wants to go to homeostasis. It's going to go there as fast as it can. And so if they're adding more while they're in a calorie deficit, it's going to go there faster. Right. It's going to get to, that place where obviously the metabolism starts to adjust. And it's not a good adjustment. It's actually a bad adjustment. That's where we would start to see, even my 100-pound, people that usually have 100 pounds to lose. What I typically do with them that's different than somebody who has, 15 to 20 is I'll get 25 pounds off in the reverse, and then I'll start to slowly cut them, and I'll get another 20 pounds off. Okay. And then I'll build them back up again and give them more food, and I'll get another 8 to 10 pounds off, and then I'll cut them and get another 8 to 10 pounds off. And then I'll build them back up. I'll get another 6 to 7 pounds off, and then I'll cut them, get another 6 to 7 pounds off, because now we're at that 20-pound marker, and I know I'm going to have to cut them. Yeah. And I have to have that same conversation that I have with the 15 to 20 pounders when they start, and that is this: hey guys, you're going to love the reverse diet because you get more food and you either maintain or you might see a little drop on the scale, which is exciting because you're eating more. You're winning. You're eating more and you're losing. Right. Cool. It doesn't always happen that way with the reverse. Sometimes people maintain weight the entire time, but they're very excited because after 4 months of adding food, 400, 500, 600, sometimes 1,000 calories, they are now going to cut like a champion. Okay. Because we have way more to cut from. When people are still yo-yo dieting off of 1,200 calories, they're setting themselves up for failure over and over and over again. Right. Even a child shouldn't be on 1,200 calories. Let's face it, right? Obviously, there's always the exception to the rule, and I have to throw this out there because everybody thinks they're the exception to the rule, that they have a slow metabolism or they have, this genetic characteristic or that. Guys, I am here to tell you 99.9% of the people that work with me do not have metabolic adaptation or what they call metabolic damage. They just have a suppressed system. They have been under-eating, overtraining, and we balance those two things out, and their body is just as responsive. It might be a little slower in the beginning. It's just as responsive as long as the hormones look good. Yeah. So that brings me to my second laundry list of things that you want to come in hand with to your nutritionist, to your dietitian, whomever you're going to hire to be your manager, your conductor, if you will, as you're the engineer. Your conductor needs to see the map. The map is the internal system. Is the internal system and the railway intact? If it is, we've got a pretty smooth ride ahead, right? If it's not, we might have some bumps. We might actually have the train derail for a few months while you're getting your hormones back into a place where, they're sufficient. So if we know that straight out of the gate, it makes dieting a lot easier. If we know we have a suppressed system and we know that we have T3, T4, looking a little low on the low end, there's things that you can do too with sleep and nutrition that can put you in a better place for dieting. I certainly wouldn't look at somebody who has low testosterone, low T3, low T4 and say, yeah, let's cut you. Right. Why would you do that? Mm-hmm. Basically, all you're asking for is to see those levels even lower next time. So what I would want them to focus on over focusing on fat loss is focusing on getting those levels up, whether it's through supplementation and nutrition and a reverse diet. I think all three of those things are the best option. Going to an endocrinologist or an internal medicine doctor or somebody who can perform HRT and looks at your lab work every 3 months and says, yes, we're making improvements. Please tell your nutrition coach, great job. Right. Let's keep moving forward if we shall. Keep moving forward. And at that point, you can kind of say, you know what? I love where we're headed. Let's go ahead and do another 3 or 4 months of adding food very slowly, hoping to get your body fat to drop a little bit lower as we're doing this. Can you be as adherent as possible? So alongside sustainability, because I understand that sustainability is ultimately what's going to keep the person on the program, there comes a point where adherence far supersedes your personal preference to want to eat Pop-Tarts, junk food, cereal, things that you enjoyed in the reverse diet that you are not going to be able to enjoy as much near the middle of your cut. Because let's face it, you've got less calories, you need more volume, more fiber, more foods that are going to keep you satiated. You're not going to be going for the candy bar. Trust me, you're not.
Right.
You will want to, but you won't, because you know that you will be hungry the rest of the day and you won't hit your numbers. So there also is that area of, hey, Kelly, I'm really struggling with adherence. Okay, are you having cravings? Yes. Maybe we need to do a small diet break. You've been going hard for 6 months. You've been very adherent in the reverse diet. You've learned all the good behavior. I'm not worried about you in the cut. I'm worried about you quitting the cut is what I'm worried about. So I almost think losing 15 to 20 pounds is a lot harder because sometimes it just takes that extra diligence, less calories, where a person who comes to you with more body fat and is eating more calories or can get their calories up higher and they're losing the entire time, the carrot is always there for them.
Right.
Where the carrot isn't always there for the person because they're like, I just want a piece of pizza.
Right.
Forget about the last 3 pounds. I just want a piece of pizza. But then after they have the pizza or, whatever it is that they want, sometimes they want it again the next day.
Right.
And they just are like, you know what? Can I go back to a place where I have some of the food that I had in the reverse diet? And I'm like, yes, I'm very glad that you brought this to my attention because you are now at a place where you're okay with yourself. You don't need to lose the extra 3 pounds, do you?
Yeah.
They're like, no, I look great. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, good.
So I like to hear, no, I look great, or, you know what? I wore this swimsuit, or I got into the shorts that I wanted to get into. And a lot of times they'll be like, but I still want that 3 pounds. And I'm like, you wait. In 6 weeks, you won't want it. You won't even care about it. Because again, even, there's always that like 10% that still add muscle while they're in a deficit, a little deficit. So, that's another thing that I think, we haven't really delved into yet is, at what point does each person start adding lean body mass, right?
Right.
Well, we don't really know. But at what point does the person start losing lean body mass? We don't really know. Mm-hmm. We kind of have to do it once or twice to figure out, hey, this is where you started to lose lean body mass last time. Why don't we maintain here and reverse again for a few months and then come back down and see if we can get that extra 3 pounds off? Okay. So there's a lot of reversing and cutting and reversing, and we call those like mini cycles of dieting.
Okay.
And I think mini cycles of dieting with a diet break, a controlled diet break, is monumental and has been the best thing that I've implemented in the last 2.5 years. I do it for all the CrossFitters after regionals or after the Open, depending on what their schedule is. And I can't even tell you, the feedback this year was like, oh my gosh, I so needed that, and these are athletes that are rigid and very strict and on a schedule every day. People that come for weight loss are typically not like that. They want everything right now. They want it quick. And those are the people that I'm not largely successful with. They don't typically sign up with me if they want instant results because their friends have told them.
Right.
Fat loss is not fast.
Right.
So weight loss can be fast, can't it? Mm-hmm. It can.
Yeah.
We can manipulate many different things. Sodium, water, alcohol, sleep. We can do all sorts of different things to manipulate scale weight.
Right.
I've done it 1,000,000 times to get people to their goal so that they can have a knee surgery because their insurance requires that.
Right.
When I do it, I feel like a savage. I hate it. I'm like, we aren't losing fat, and I'm teaching this person that losing scale weight is fine because they get what they want. So I think that it's extremely difficult when insurance companies require that the person lose this amount of weight to have their surgery. They're going to gain it all back.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You've now just performed the surgery. You haven't given them any healthful tips for losing body fat and keeping it off and sustaining it. You've just said, you have to be at this place or we're not going to perform surgery on you. It's the same thing with gastric bypass surgery. So I think gastric bypass and bariatric surgeries are absolutely necessary for some people. Mm-hmm. I agree with it. I am not in disagreement about it. I know people who have done it. They've done the nutrition counseling with it, and they've maintained their weight loss the whole time because they got the education, they changed the behavior psychologically, and they are now, living a different lifestyle, just like somebody who would be macro tracking. the method can be different. When you're that overweight, when you're that obese, it's not just about losing weight at that point. It's about psychologically feeling different.
Right.
Again, we talked about fat phobia. We live in a fat phobic society. Everything you see on Instagram now that's a fitspo, these people are, taking pictures of themselves, twisting and turning and doing God knows what and posing in all their photos. And again, they're all photoshopped. And we do need to get away from that. And I do think that, women and gentlemen, and we're seeing it very prevalent in the male side of things too. Like, I think society also thinks that men don't struggle with eating disorder. We are seeing male eating disorder grow at a rapid rate.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. There's so much pressure out there to look good and not to be fat, quote unquote. And again, I say it because I don't have a fear of saying that word. If you feel better saying obesity or overweight, that's fine. But anyone who is quote unquote fat will tell you it doesn't matter how you say it, that's how they feel.
Right.
And every single day they have to walk around being this way. That's why I do support bariatric surgery. For some people, I think it is the only method that's going to get them psychologically to a place where they can go, you know what, I can do this last 70 pounds the right way.
Right.
I can do it. I've met people. Now, again, there are big issues with those surgeries, malabsorption, you name it. There are issues. Obviously, with the lap bands, there were probably a lot more medical issues with the lap band than anything.
Yeah, it's pretty high risk.
Slipping, it's very high risk. Yeah, I mean, anything you electively do as a surgery you're gonna run a risk.
Right.
So, I definitely support it, but I would throw caution to anybody who has more than 25 pounds to lose, really. Make sure that you work on what's going on in your brain before you hire your nutrition coach.
Yeah.
I'm very, very good. I don't want to say an expert, but I'm very, very good at the psychological component because I am recovering eating disorder. I did do all of the legwork that it took me to stay in recovery, get there, be there. It is not a struggle for me, probably because of what I do for a living. Every day I'm reminded that I need to be this and I need to do these things. Why? Because it's what keeps me healthy. The way that I was going about it before was not keeping me healthy. In fact, it was pulling me so far away from health. It's the same thing with your psychological, outlook on life, your body, your image, your work. Everything will really take a beating when you don't feel good about where you're at.
Right.
Depression, anxiety. I mean, that's why I'm a huge proponent of weightlifting. I'm a huge proponent of movement.
Right.
I think people that move are in far better mood than people who don't move. Again, so I take people in the general population and I start getting this weight off, and then I say, let's go ahead and add some walking. The people who have 15 to 20 pounds to lose are usually overtrainers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's those two spectrums again. We have people that sit behind a desk and don't want to go to the gym and don't want to go outside and walk around because they're insecure. And they live in that body every single day. It's daunting.
Right.
I have more compassion for that than somebody who's like, I need to see my sixth ab come in or I'm not going to be happy. And I'm like, whew, life is rough.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't tell you 95% of our population would love to look like you right now.
Right.
And maybe even 3 abs ago.
Yeah.
So, the process with, with the 50 and 50 plus pound fat loss is very, very similar, but in some respects easier because those people see great results doing the reverse. They see great results cutting because they've got a sufficient amount of food to cut from. And they love the balanced eating plan, so I think, sustainability and adherence to the program are the most important of any of and then obviously having yourself some psychological support when you know that food has been your emotional escape. If it's not beer or, alcohol or drugs or, movies or whatever it is that the person uses to escape, it's food. And food for some people can be the most difficult addiction to alter.
Right.
We need food to sustain life.
Right.
So it is very difficult, obviously, for people to take it out of the house. You can't do that. Where with most addictions, it can be removed, and it's far less tempting, right? So what I tell people that are on a weight loss program that have struggled with binge eating or even, binge eating on occasion because of restrictive eating is if it's going to come in the house and it's going to cause you anxiety or that you might binge on it and you don't trust yourself, don't bring it in the house. But you still need to have some things that are prepackaged that you can go to that are fun every single day. You need to have something in your diet that you like and you look forward to eating or you will not stay on the plan for more than 2 or 3 days at a time. We see that so prevalent in the fitness industry when people get done with doing shows too. A lot of disordered eating, a lot of labeling foods good and bad. I don't allow that in my program. I don't allow people to say clean, dirty, good, bad. I say moderation and they're like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. That's a good distinction to make for sure.
Yeah, because again, you don't want to be going to parties and social events and family gatherings and telling people that what they're eating is good and bad.
Right.
Clean and unhealthy.
Right.
I actually had a couple on last night that talked about their journey and just how they used to label food in front of their kids all the time. Clean, dirty, bad, good. And now they said the best thing you've taught us, Kelli, is that our kids have healthy boundaries and they know exactly which foods are higher quality. Right. And they call it high quality and we need more grams of that, Mom. And I'm like, that's good, or we need more grams of protein or we can't have our carb and fat snack, right. Because it's all carbs and fat and there's no protein in it. And guys, we need to make sure we're getting a little bit of fiber. So if you've had goldfish today, maybe you have an apple tonight or you have applesauce or you have something that's not, just all fat and carbs. You get a little bit of fiber in with those carbs too. So I think it's neat that kids are actually learning that even some of the macro tracking moms and dads that do it really well and have great balance are teaching these kids that that's not a well-balanced snack.
Right.
You're missing one of the macros, maybe add a little turkey deli meat or some yogurt or, whatever it is that the parents are having. But it's really neat too, because a lot of times people come in and they're like, hey, I'm going to have 3 meals out this week getting ready to go on my plan. And I'm like, you're going to have meals out on my plan. Oh, I am? Yeah. You have to live life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're always very shocked when they're like, wow, I could do this for the rest of my life. I'm like, you're going to. We're going to teach you. Mm-hmm. So I'm not on a diet. No, you're on a plan. It's just a plan. I'm going to teach you how to balance your budget, your macro budget. It's exactly like your finances. If you come to me and you're in debt, we're going to build up your bank account, right? So we're going to reverse diet you. We're going to get your calories up to a place where we've got money to spend, macro money. We've got calories to spend. And then we're going to spend those carefully, aren't we? Yes. Okay. So then when I make that analogy, a lot of couples really get it.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. Macro money.
That's a great one. Yeah.
It's a great one. And, I often share with my population too in our live coaching sessions. I'm like, when I was in debt, I didn't have the luxury to do, gel nails or this or that. It's the same thing with diet. If you're eating in a deficit right now, you may not be able to have a whole hamburger.
Right.
But in a few weeks or a few months, you will be able to. Mm-hmm. And so you might have to go to sushi to go out to eat for the first few times you go out to dinner because your fat consumption there is going to be a little bit lower. It's just like spending money. You may not be able to go to Nordstrom yet. You might have to go to Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when they're like, I can shop at Ross. I can go have sushi or,
I could do sushi.
Or I could go get a salad out and still have fun and fellowship with my family and stuff. It doesn't always just have to be a cheat meal or a blowout or a cheat week. There is no cheating when you use sustainability and you use balance in your diet. When the diet is sustainable, you've got calorie balance and, you still can enjoy some of these things. You may not be able to have the entire tray of brownies. You might have one brownie for that day. And then the next day you're like, I really want to have a brownie again. Well, you're going to get burnt out on brownies. You're not going to have them every day, but we do have some stigma associated with flexible dieting that I think overweight people, fat people, people with more than 50 pounds of weight loss are worried about because they've been tricked into thinking that they have to eat clean the whole time. And that's just not the truth. But I would also say that the If It Fits Your Macros group has made it also right wing. You can have anything you want. Sugar, donuts, cookies, cupcakes, Pop-Tarts, whatever you want, as long as it fits your macros. No.
Right.
We talked about that in episode 2.
We did.
You're not going to hit your fiber requirement. You're not going to feel good eating that way, probably for the rest of your life. And again, you're not going to hit your macro requirements for the day.
Right.
Namely protein. Unless you just want to drink shakes. And again, you're not going to hit your fiber requirement. So how ridiculous is it to think that if it fits your macros, people only eat this stuff? And if they do, I would say, if they're supplementing protein so that they can eat like a jerk, that too is very imbalanced.
Yeah,
and is going to have problems down the road. And again, nobody really does that. It's just that if it fits your macros has been stigmatized as the group that eats Pop-Tarts and the group that eats donuts. They do eat some of that stuff. So do mine.
Right.
My clients do too. They're flexible dieters. Mm-hmm. If they need something to stay on their plan, they will eat it. Most people do not abuse it.
Right.
If somebody has a donut, sometimes they'll even ask me the first couple times, they're like, now again, it's okay if I have a donut as long as it fits my numbers, right? Yes, but tell me how you feel the rest of the day after you have the donut. And they're like, man, because I had the donut, I couldn't have, my full plate of chicken and broccoli and rice at night because that's what the donut had in it and my shake. And I'm like, you're right. The macro exchange was not a good macro exchange for you today, was it? Because you don't have enough calories to be a little bit more careless with your macros. Just like when your bank account gets higher, you can give more, right?
Right.
You can spend more. You can have a diverse portfolio, if you will. You can have a pretty diverse portfolio of macros if you've got enough calories, you know. So by and large, what I would say, as far as people who have a lot of weight to lose, I would say this: if you don't see yourself staying on the program that you're on right now longer than 6 months, then it's not sustainable. You need to search for the program that has the most sustainability, the slowest fat loss, and will take you a little bit longer than your budget calls for. If you are giving yourself 3 months to lose 50 pounds, you're not going to. And you definitely will not lose 50 pounds of fat loss in 3 months. I'll be honest, never seen it, won't see it, probably until our science is so advanced that we can actually create human, fat-burning modules inside our body, right? When you burn body fat, it is always going to be slow. Average weight loss per week for even people that are losing 15 to 20 pounds is about a half a pound to a pound a week. 1.5 pounds would be a lot, and you'd have to be nailing everything without variable. And you'd also have to have pretty good genetics, and your hormones would need to be quite optimal for that. Yeah. So take away from this episode, if I can encourage anyone to do anything, it would be, make sure that you know what your maintenance level calories are first. A very easy way to determine that would be, and this will put you pretty close to where your maintenance is your weight times 15. And if you're not active, your weight times 10 times 1.2 would be fine. That'll give you a ballpark figure. And then if you start tracking on your MyFitnessPal or your tracking device, and again, no affiliation with Under Armour or MyFitPal, you can use any tracking device. If you see that your calories are way lower than your maintenance level calories, you may want to, inquire about reverse dieting. And there are a lot of great articles. One in particular I would steer you to, because the clarity in this is a great article written by registered dietitian Katie Coles, who is actually now in Austin, Texas. She works with Avatar Nutrition. I know I've given them a shout out a couple times. Read Katie Coles' article on reverse dieting. You can find it at bodybuilding.com. You can search for it in Google and you will come up with it. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Very well written. It explains exactly the process and why you need to reverse diet, why it's important to do it so that you can successfully get that body fat off of your body and keep it off for good.
No, that's a great resource. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So just to kind of highlight some of the other key points that Kelli made during this episode, there's a big difference between scale weight and fat loss. And to learn more about that, you can go to episode 2 of our nutrition series, where we talk about common mistakes that are made in nutrition. a lot of individuals that are in this gen population that we just talked about, they are under consuming protein and they're under eating, and a key, or one of the biggest keys to making sure that they get the weight loss that they're looking for at a sustainable way is changing that adaptability. And there's different ways of doing that, reverse dieting being one of them that Kelli just mentioned. Make sure to keep that sustainability, to take diet breaks. And you also want to make sure that you are eating. There's something in your day that you're looking forward to eating, and that'll help you make sure that you stick on the program that you put yourself on. And the last thing was just using the analogy that Kelli used, where you budget macros like you do your money, and that'll help with your sustainability and tracking everything that you're eating and making sure that you're enjoying it and not hating your life. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and end this episode. The next episode we'll talk about is going to be using macro tracking and hormone replacement therapy, which I know Kelly's super excited for.
I'm excited. I'm pumped for that one.
And so until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Kelli, thank you for being here once again.
Thank you.